仲係講嘢麻麻地啊。咁啊就我哋呢個咧就金融機構處置機制吸收虧損能力銀行界規則。咁咧就我哋咧第一次嘅會議，咁我哋咧就係夠法定人數，咁我哋先去選個主席，好嗎？好，阿郭榮鏗議員。
議員。
陳振英，郭榮鏗議員提名陳振英議員 ，OK。有冇人和議？陳健波議員和議 ，OK。陳振英議員，你接唔接受？
我接受啊，唔該。
接受 ，OK。好，有效提名。好，仲有冇其他提名？我數五聲啊 ，OK。1、2、3、4、5，好。陳議員你上嚟主持啊 ，OK。
好，同大家講下，睇下大家覺得有冇需要選個副主席啦？唔使啦，嗬，唔使咁，我哋就不如請政府嘅代表入嚟，好唔好啊？唔該。係。我叫佢5分鐘好啦，唔好咁長啦。10分鐘都冇用，因為太複雜。係啊，不如俾5分鐘佢講個框架算啦。我係銀行，我都搞咗好耐。係啊。歡迎今日財經事務及庫務局首席助理秘書長張女士啦，金管局處置機制辦公室Mr. Robert Probin 同埋 Miss Helen Chan， 仲有我哋律政司嘅高級政府律師朱小姐。咁我想咁啊，因為其實嗰份 paper 咧就派咗俾大家嘅，我覺得就唔需要太長時間嘅簡介，可唔可以咧請政府當局咧簡單用5、6分鐘咧就將個框架講出嚟，因為好多都係技術性嘅嘢。咁然後等我哋啲同事先就呢個整體成個條例嘅即係情況咧，可以發問下先，好冇？唔該晒。
好，多謝主席。
張秘書長，唔該。
多謝各位議員。咁我如果時間有限咧，我不如就請金管局嘅同事簡介一下呢一個規則，因為都係金融管理當局根據呢個處置條例而制定嘅。咁而家請金管局嘅同事Mr. Probin。
Thank you. So I will just make a brief presentation on the background and substance of the rules. So just very briefly up front, what is the purpose of these rules? These rules will promote financial stability and depositor protection in Hong Kong. The failure of certain banks could pose risks to the Hong Kong financial system and therefore the wider economy, and potentially cut off depositors from their money. These rules will require banks to issue a new type of debt to investors that could be written off or converted into equity if the bank runs into trouble. Removing debt from the bank's balance sheet is able to restore it to financial health by imposing losses on investors. This allows the bank to continue to perform critical financial functions and protects depositors' funds. I'm now going to give a very brief overview of the Hong Kong resolution regime and the background to these rules. So the international context for the development of resolution standards internationally was the global financial crisis, which saw systemically important financial institutions fail and have to receive taxpayer-funded bailouts in order to avoid severe adverse financial stability implications. The Financial Stability Board, of which Hong Kong is a member, was mandated by G20 leaders to address this problem, and this led to the development of international standards. The Financial Institutions Resolution Ordinance was enacted by the Legislative Council in Hong Kong in June 2016, And this establishes a regime for the resolution of financial institutions that is aligned with the international standards developed by the Financial Stability Board. The legislation I just referred to, the FIRO, establishes a regime that covers the banking sector, the insurance sector, and also the securities and futures sector. And the ordinance, the FIRO, identifies the relevant authorities for each of those sectors as the resolution authority that, should an entity under its purview fail, would assume responsibility for managing the orderly failure in a way that protects financial stability. The FIRO does this by providing the resolution authorities, which for banking sector entities, including authorised institutions, is the monetary authority. It provides them with the power to apply stabilisation options, in particular the bail-in stabilisation option, which allows the resolution authority to write off or convert into equity certain liabilities on a bank's balance sheet, and also transfer stabilisation options, which allow for the resolution authority to transfer certain assets and liabilities of a failing bank to a third party. Very briefly then, a policy rationale specifically for these rules. The bail-in stabilisation option works by allowing the resolution authority to, as I explained, write down or convert into equity certain liabilities of a bank, and in so doing, recapitalise the institution without recourse to public funds. However, certain types of liabilities are more suited to being bailed in than others. Like, for example, subordinated unsecured debt can in particular be bailed in more easily. So the purpose of these rules is to ensure that authorised institutions have sufficient stock of liabilities that can be readily bailed in, i.e. sufficient loss-absorbing capacity or lack. So having sufficient lack is a prerequisite then for an authorised institution to be able to be resolved, should it fail, in an orderly way that preserves financial stability and protects access to critical financial functions, including including the deposit-taking facilities enjoyed by ordinary depositors. So facilitating the orderly resolution will protect those depositors and the broader provision of financial functions by banks to the wider economy. I'm now just going to move on to consider very briefly a few of the details in the rules. So the rules will allow the monetary authority as resolution authority for authorised institutions to classify an AI or certain group companies of an authorised institution as a resolution entity under these rules. Resolution entities under the rules are then required to meet minimum external lack requirements by issuing these loss-absorbing capacity debt instruments to entities outside the group of the relevant bank. The rules will also allow the monetary authority to classify a bank or certain group companies of the bank as a material subsidiary where that entity is part of a wider banking group. And should that happen, material subsidiaries would be required under the rules to issue these loss-absorbing capacity debt instruments internally within the banking group, thereby meeting an internal lack requirement. Under the rules, the external lack requirement to be met by a resolution entity is calibrated at twice the minimum regulatory capital requirements. The internal lack requirement to be met by material subsidiaries is calibrated as if the material subsidiary were a resolution entity, but scaled at in between 75 and 100%. These calibrations are set out in the rules, but the monetary authority under the rules would have a power of variation to vary the precise calibrations where necessary to reflect institution-specific circumstances. There's also a minimum debt requirement under the rules to require a minimum proportion, 1/3, of an authorised institution's lack requirement to be met with debt instruments rather than equity. The other couple of points of detail it will be helpful to bring out here is that the timeline for implementation, as set out in the rules, is 24 months after a resolution entity or material subsidiary has been classified by the MA, subject to where the rules promulgated by the Financial Stability Board specifies a shorter timeline for a global systemically important bank, then under the rules, any such entity would have to meet a LAC requirement within 3 months. And finally, because these LAC debt instruments provided for in the rules are designed to boost the loss-absorbing capacity of banks, they are therefore at risk of incurring loss should a bank fail, and are therefore unsuitable for investment by ordinary retail investors. So under the rules, issuance will be limited to professional investors only, and they must be in a minimum denomination of $2 million in order to further limit their appeal to investors who may not properly understand or be able to bear the loss. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Robert, for your brief introduction. I'll now open the floor for our members to raise questions first. But before that, I think I need to declare once again my role as the consultant of BOC Hong Kong, licensed bank here in Hong Kong. 頭先有3位同事已經舉咗手嘅，第一位係林健鋒議員啦，第二位係涂謹申議員，第3位係郭榮鏗議員，第4位係梁繼昌議員，第5位係陳健波議員。咁不如我就唔限時間先嘅，咁不如第一位林健鋒議員你先提問先啦，唔該。
多謝主席。我睇過份文件啦，就有好多問題咧，政府係需要回應嘅。嗱，首先你哋係做過一個諮詢，但係諮詢之後咧，嗰份文件咧同諮詢之前咧係冇乜分別㗎，嚇。咁所以但我亦都聽到好多唔同。金融界銀行界特別係銀行界嗰啲中小企，佢哋有好多意見咧，都未被採納嘅。咁嗱，呢個處置條例其實咧就嗰個意圖咧就係為香港具呢個系統重要性嘅金融機構建立一個處置嘅機制，咁以預防或者緩減因為佢哋唔可能再持續經營而對香港金融體系嘅穩定所造成嘅風險。嗱，呢度咁樣寫嘅咧，但係我睇翻份文件嘅咧，就香港所有嗰啲銀行差唔多都包括在內嘅，包括嗰啲細小銀行。咁仲有喎，今次呢個條例提到受涵括嘅金融機構咧，仲包括銀行界嘅實體啦，保險界。證券同埋期貨界都係包括在內嘅。咁即係我都想問一問政府個原意係點樣嘅咧？係唔係淨係單針對銀行，抑或係嗰個涵蓋面咧係伸展到所有嗰啲金融機構？咁響另一個角度去睇啦，呢啲我係收到一啲中小企嘅意見嘅，佢哋就話the LHC regime is designed for large systematically important banks. It was a basic tenet of the new Basel III regulations that large systematically important banks with complex international operations need to bear higher levels of capital to protect against the greater risk they present to the operation of the financial system. The small banks individually have very small market share of less than 2% in Hong Kong banking market, whether measured in terms of total asset, loan or deposit, and none of them perform critically functions which, by virtue of their failure, would put the operation of Hong Kong banking system at risk. They are therefore not considered systematically important, nor would their failure pose risk to the stability and affecting working of financial system of Hong Kong. Also, all these measures would also increase their operation costs. That would not increase their competitiveness, but in result hurt their competitiveness against the bigger banks. So, Chairman, so I would like the government or MA to answer my above questions.
OK， 唔該晒林議員。係啊，張秘書長你回答。
我首先解一解呢個涵蓋面嗰個問題，然之後我交俾金管局嘅同事解即係關於佢哋諮詢銀行界嘅一啲情況啦。咁首先嗰個金融機構處置條例係的確係適用於銀行、證券業嘅公司同埋呢個保險業嘅實體。咁但係喺呢一個LACRU而家我哋審議緊呢一個規例係金融管理專員就住銀行界而制定嘅。咁我哋都係認為即係考慮到對香港整體嗰個經濟金融體系嗰個穩定嘅影響，同埋無論嗰個規模各樣嘢考慮埋一齊嘅話咧，就係銀行界係需要首先針對吸收虧損能力，首先制定呢個規則嘅。咁所以而家我哋講緊嘅呢一個規則只係適用於銀行界。咁至於銀行界其他即係諮詢嘅問題，我請金管局嘅同事嚟同大家詳細解釋一下。
Certainly, yes. So thank you for your question. So like on the consultation process, there was an original consultation paper launched in January, to which we responded, and then another consultation process in July, to which we again responded. And over the course of the process, there were some amendments made to reflect consultation responses. To pick up, though, on the particular point of emphasis in the question about the applicability of these rules to potentially small and medium-sized banks. The primary legislation, the FIRO, is expressly designed to cover, expressly covers all authorised institutions within the banking sector. And so the LAC rules themselves, these rules, also potentially cover a wider range of authorised institutions that are likely to necessarily be subject to LAC requirements. So under the rules, the monetary authority is able to classify as a resolution entity or material subsidiary only institutions incorporated in Hong Kong, and in practice will only be able to classify as resolution entities or material subsidiaries those entities that, on failure, would be anticipated to be put into resolution under the primary legislation, the FIRO. And in order to be put into legislation under the FIRO, there are a number of conditions that have to be met, including the condition that the failure of the entity in question would pose a risk to financial stability in Hong Kong, including to the continued performance of critical financial functions. So what this means is that in the circumstances where there is a very small AI, the failure of which would clearly not pose any risk to financial stability, and where the failure of which would not threaten the continued performance of critical financial functions, then that entity could not be put into resolution under the FIRO, and equally could not be classified as a resolution entity or material subsidiary by the monetary authority under these rules. So while the terms of the rules are cast fairly broadly to make sure the monetary authority does have the power to impose LAC requirements where they are needed, the intention is not to apply requirements unless an entity on failure would be considered likely to pose a risk to financial stability.
Chairman, I'd like to suggest, since I received many comments from the banks and financial institutions, especially the smaller banks, actually I think maybe it's prudent for us to invite them to come here and we listen to them once more and to get a straightforward answer from the authorities.
Okay, that means you think deputation will be required for us to listen to the industry's opinion before we, further deliberate the rules, right?
I think as I said, it's prudent, and I think it's necessary for us to hear the views from the concerned institutions.
Okay, thank you. Jeffrey, do you have any follow-up question on the answer by the HKMA representative, Robert?
It will take me a whole day, I think.
Okay, so let me turn to James. You can raise your question now. Thanks.
Testing. Okay. Sorry, for my voice. I will leave more question for my colleague for their whole day. And I just ask a more simple question and on this first meeting. Hopefully, my voice will change better to the next meeting. Okay. Well, I understand. First, from the first question, that certain banking entity, well, to say not big enough to pose systematic risk to the financial system, may not be called on under this mechanism. Well, when my colleague just have a small talk during my colleague Jeffrey asking, of course, we are thinking about there may be at least several in our mind. But I think, of course, I don't want to, I'm not have a specific view on those smaller banks. But can we know roughly, up till now, how many of, well, in the current situation, okay, how many entities out of all the banks we are talking about, which may not be big enough to have systematic risk? That's number one. Number two, well, is it if those are bigger banks, okay, which may impose a systematic risk to the financial system, okay, you want the shareholder or the supporters, okay, or the shareholders, basically, have the standby fund or a commitment or a guarantee in case of need to issue those new debts, which may be, well, eventually converted into a losable equity. Okay. Well, I'm asking the amount, let's say, in this current situation, when I'm the ultimate shareholder, controlling shareholder, will I know now that what's the amount at the current situation? Take into account my equity, the market cap of my bank, the debt, and the involvement of my bank in the system. Will I know how much I should have this kind of standby debt to be issued once you trigger the mechanism? Or under what mechanism that I will know until I have time to prepare for my continual support of this bank? That means whenever you trigger this mechanism, I have to have the fund ready or within certain days to have sufficient capital to inject into the bank on this new debt. Okay. Well, is that all are very certain under the principal mechanism or under this secondary subsidiary legislation? Yeah.
Robert, please.
Sure. Thank you for your questions. I will I'll address them in turn. So the first question on kind of how many banks would be potentially covered by this piece of legislation. So there are of the order of, so the FARO, the primary legislation, covers all authorized institutions, of which there are approximately a couple of hundred in Hong Kong. It is clear from the rules that they will only apply, even potentially, to institutions that are potentially of importance to financial stability and that are also incorporated in Hong Kong. And if we look then at the number of licensed banks that are incorporated in Hong Kong, that reduces the number to 22 out of a couple of hundred or so. And on the same date in which these rules were...
sorry, one very small question. These 22, they know that they are one out of the 22, or that they may not know whether they are included, practically.
Sure.
Well, of course, a chairman's bank is a consultant post to that bank. Of course, I'm very sure. But what the banks that refer to are my colleague, Jeffrey Lam. I don't know, maybe they are not included, but they are worried that because they do not know that they are included or not.
Sure.
James, I would like to clarify one point. These particular rules should be interpreted or read in conjunction with Code of Practice to be issued by Hong Kong MA. Under that separate Code of Practice, they have some concrete numbers that identify yourself whether you will be coached by the LAC requirement. My understanding is that for general banking community in Hong Kong, only a few very small banks will be could be escaped from this requirement, just like a 3 bank. My understanding is only 3 banks that could be excluded from this requirement. And those 3 banks are pretty small in number. I don't know whether you want me to name them or not.
No, Chairman, well, please. Because,
okay,
no,
sure.
Please. Because the government said it's 22 who may be affected. Mm-hmm. Okay, but you said
only 3
you're very sure
will be
that
excluded.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I want to answer directly from the government.
Okay, sure.
Well, because because they will say, no, not just the 3, because the other 18, because other 100 odd, okay, may be potentially included. Of course, maybe 3 very safe, not included. But because they said 22, so that means that 22 and the other non-22 will be the dividing line.
Okay. If I could clarify, excuse the interruption. So the 22 are those that are potentially, on a reading of the LAC rules, could be in scope. And thank you for pointing out that we published a code of practice on the 19th of October, the same day the rules were gazetted, published a draft for consultation. And according to the proposals set out in that consultation draft, of those 22, a number would not be covered. So on the proposal put out in the draft, around about 17 of the 22 would potentially be within scope. But just to emphasize the point that this is according to a proposal put out in a consultation draft of a code of practice issued on the 19th of October.
Please continue with the other.
Yeah, the second question,
whether they know
bigger bank,
amount,
whether they know exact amount they need to issue.
Sure. So on that second question, the rules, as we saw in the brief presentation earlier, require that for a resolution entity, the starting point is that the LAC requirement is 2 times its regulatory minimum capital requirement, and that for a material subsidiary, so a part of a wider banking group, the requirement will be 2 times reduced by the so-called internal LAC scaler. So on a combined reading of the LAC rules and the consultation draft of the Code of Practice, it will be clear to AIs which ones are potentially in scope on the reading of the Code of Practice, which obviously remains in draft form. But just to clarify, there is in any case a timeline which is designed to ensure that once resolution entities and material subsidiaries are formally classified, and once LAC requirements are set on an institution-by-institution basis, that there will then be a further 24-month period for implementation. In the consultation conclusion that the HKMA published in July, we set out a planning assumption that, excluding for one moment global systemically important banks that will be required to meet LAC requirements sooner under FSB proposals. So excluding those, the planning assumption is that no other banks would be formally classified any earlier than the 1st of January 2020. So following then a 24-month implementation period as set out in the rules, no other banks could be required to start to meet LAC requirements any earlier than the 1st of January 2022.
Okay. James, if you don't mind, I will let Dennis to raise his question first, and then we'll come back to you later, okay? Dennis, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. I've got 3 specific questions. Number one, I note that the Financial Stability Board in the UK has issued similar LAC requirements. And in the proposal of the SFB, if I remember correctly, the LAC requirement has a range of around 16 to 22% of the risk-weighted assets as the TLAC requirement that they have imposed. Now, how does that compare with the requirement that we have under the present rules, which is the inner LAC scala of 75% to 100%? How does that compare with the requirement adopted by the Financial Stability Board? Because I'm not a banker, so I don't know how the 2 figures relate with each other. Are we safer? Are we requiring our banks to do more, or about the same, or less? That's number one. Number 2 is paragraph 14 of the paper. You said that for authorized institutions that are incorporated outside Hong Kong, you would also allow them to issue the LAC equivalent instruments. So what extra safeguards have you put in place to ensure that if these instruments are issued outside of Hong Kong, how do you ensure that they are legally enforceable? What extra measures would you require these AIs who are incorporated outside to satisfy you that the LAC that they've issued are of the same quality and of the same legal certainty as those issued in Hong Kong? For example, in the UK, I think they require a specific legal advice confirming that that particular LAC instrument issued in that other jurisdiction complies with the laws of that jurisdiction. So do we have something similar in place? Number 3 is, I think a similar question has been asked by my honorable friends, is whether we have done an impact assessment. In particular, once these rules are implemented, do we know what the impact assessment will be on the bank's ability to provide liquidity or credit to the market? How are they going to be, is it going to be make life much more difficult for them, or whether they can afford to continue to provide sufficient credit to the market? So 3 questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Robert?
Thank you for your questions. So taking them one at a time. So the first question asking about the extent to which the proposed calibration of LAC requirements under these rules compare with those under the Financial Stability Board's proposals. So the simple answer is that the proposed calibration is broadly the same. But whereas under the FSB's rules, there is a sort of a one-size-fits-all approach of, as you say, 16%, then rising to 18% of RWAs for all GSIBs. What we've done under the LAC rules is have a calibration that is driven off the existing capital requirements of an institution. And what this does is better reflect the particular characteristics of an institution in setting the LAC requirement. So if an institution is particularly safe, deemed particularly safe, and has a low capital requirement, it will then have a lower overall LAC requirement. If it is deemed to need a higher capital requirement, it will accordingly need a higher LAC requirement. So the numbers will, broadly speaking, be comparable to those proposed by the FSB, but they do a better job of capturing firm institution-specific idiosyncrasies and risks.
So we're more flexible, in other words?
Yes, you could put it that way. Yeah.
flexible in the sense that Hong Kong MA can have, a discretion on the implementation measures.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess flexible in both ways. Firstly, in that the calibration of LAC requirements, the starting point of the calibration of LAC requirements under the rules will reflect an institution's original capital requirements. So there's more flexibility there. And then the MA will also have discretion to vary that where appropriate in the context of the firm's particular circumstances.
Thank you.
So your second question about the issuance of LAC debt instruments outside Hong Kong. So this is contemplated under the LAC rules. Specifically in Schedules 1 and 2, there is a requirement that either instruments need to be governed by Hong Kong law, or if not, then appropriate reassurance needs to have been provided that if they are governed by the law of a different jurisdiction, then those instruments would still provide the same degree of loss-absorbing capacity, still provide the same amount of protection and the same amount of resource to the issuing bank.
So what is meant by appropriate measures? That, what would you how are you going to interpret that phrase or that requirement?
Yeah, so in the circumstances where, for example, an instrument was issued under a foreign law, then in those circumstances, the monetary authority, the resolution authority, would expect to see evidence of appropriate legal due diligence, for example, a legal opinion, and evidence that even though the instrument is governed by a foreign law, if need be, if that entity was to get into financial difficulties in Hong Kong, the resolution authority would still be able to access the resources represented by that instrument.
But that presumes that that foreign jurisdiction also has a similar FIRO legislative framework in place. But what if it comes from a jurisdiction where there's no such regulatory scheme in place, similar to the one we have in Hong Kong? Because you assume they also have a FIRO. So for example, does PRC have a FIRO? And if so, who is the relevant authority there?
So you're right, there could be circumstances in which an authorized institution issues LAC instruments that are governed by the law of a foreign jurisdiction, and after having done appropriate legal due diligence, the conclusion is reached that actually we cannot safely rely on this instrument being able to absorb losses. And in those circumstances, that instrument would not count towards meeting the issuer's loss-absorbing capacity requirement.
Yeah. So if the foreign jurisdiction doesn't have a FIRO similar scheme in place, then most likely you will not accept that LAC instrument as meeting the safeguards.
So that could be the case, but it doesn't necessarily follow, because it could be that actually the other jurisdiction doesn't have a resolution regime like the FIRO in place, but there might be other aspects of the interaction between the laws of the two jurisdictions, which means that in any case, we can still be confident that the powers of the resolution authority could still be used. Because these instruments are still going to be issued by a legal entity that is incorporated in Hong Kong. So I think there could be circumstances in which, even if there wasn't a FIRO equivalent, we could still get an appropriate level of legal comfort.
I'm going to stop here, but this is my last point on this question too, is I'm most interested in the PRC situation, because we're so closely connected and there are so many PRC banks in Hong Kong. And if they have to issue LAC instruments based on PRC law, how would you look at these instruments and how would you regard them? You don't have to answer me now. You can save that for a later date. But I would be very interested in how you assessed PRC law govern LAC instruments, like
especially
this bank.
Yeah, especially my understanding that PRC will implement the same, in year 2025 instead of 2022 here in Hong Kong. So I think they need to explain to you more on the different place, how it's going to work if the two different jurisdictions have different implementation day.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, third question, please, Robert.
Sorry, the third
Impact assessment.
Third question.
Impact assessment on the liquidity of banks once implemented.
Yeah, sure. So we did do an impact assessment. The HKMA did do an impact assessment on the proposals set out in the rules. And this was included in full in the first consultation paper that we issued in January earlier this year. And that impact assessment was modelled on similar impact assessments that have been done in other jurisdictions and indeed by international bodies that have put forward proposals around TLAC and LAC and so forth in other jurisdictions. And what that impact assessment does is essentially look at the potentially increased costs for banks of having to meet LAC requirements and the benefits to the financial system and the economy in Hong Kong of having improved financial stability. And certainly for the, and while I, as is clear in the impact assessment we publish, it is hard to present it as an exact science. What the impact assessment does is establish a kind of a range of LAC requirements that clearly deliver an overall net positive benefit. And certainly the sorts of calibrations that are under consideration in the rules, in particular the 2 times capital requirements, is firmly within the range of requirements that, under the impact assessment, deliver a positive net benefit for the Hong Kong economy as a whole.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dennis, have you got your answer?
No, yeah.
Okay, now then it's Kenneth's turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robert, you mentioned that the tentative implementation date will be 2022. Can you clarify whether this is a date whereby the institutions has to meet all its LAC requirement, or you're just issuing the mandate and ask them to comply? Just first question first.
On that, our planning assumption is that, as I say, excluding the global systemically important banks, so for the other AIs, they would not be classified, formally classified, any earlier than 1st Jan 2020.
Okay.
And it would then be 24 months after that that the LAC requirements would have to be met. So those are the 2 earliest dates.
Yeah, okay. My second question. Okay. You are going to assess the significance and stability and the exposure of each individual authorized institutions when you require them to issue LAC. So the scenario would probably end up having different, quantum of LAC in each of those institutions. Am I correct in assuming so, right? Is that correct?
Yes, so the requirements will be calibrated by...
Calibrated, okay. But the calibration won't change the internal and external formula. Would that change the formula? Would the calibration include any change in the basic formula at all?
So no change in the basic formula, but the MA would be able to vary the requirements if there were additional characteristics of an institution which merited a variation.
Okay. And am I correct in also assuming that both the internal and external LAC requirement will have to be met by the institution at the same time? Is that correct?
Essentially, each institution will either be subject to an external LAC requirement or an internal LAC requirement.
Okay.
So you could have within one banking group, you could have one entity that is subject to an external LAC requirement and a separate entity that is subject to an internal LAC requirement.
Okay.
And it is likely that both of those would have to be met at the same time, but each institution would only have one or the other.
Okay. So how do you determine how many entities within the group should be meeting either the internal or external requirement? Are you using the same kind of assessment or risk assessment or decision criteria?
So in terms of establishing which entities should be classified as a resolution entity. This goes back to the question we were discussing earlier about it is only those entities whose failure could pose a risk to financial stability.
Right, okay.
In terms then of identifying a material subsidiary, there are some specific criteria set out in the rules as to which entities within a group could potentially be classified as a material subsidiary with reference to their size.
Okay. Just two more questions, Chairman. Sorry about this.
It's okay.
I understand that these LAC instruments are basically unsecured debts or subordinated debts. And one other characteristics of these instruments would be that upon certain event, these debts could be converted into equity. Is that the main characteristics of these LAC instruments in a nutshell?
Sure, they could be written off just so the investor doesn't get their money back, or converted into equity, so replaced with ordinary shares.
Okay, fine. Yeah. If that is the case, would there be any existing on-balance sheet instrument substantiated in the balance sheet of these institutions which already have met the LAC requirement, which they do not need to do anything by 2022 or 2 years after 2022? Would there be any institutions that could have met already those requirements at this present moment? I mean, I'm just asking a very naive question.
No, so the answer is that's absolutely right. So under the LAC rules, banks are already subject to capital requirements, and essentially most of the capital that banks already have that counts towards capital requirements will also count towards LAC requirements.
Okay. So this comes to my question. Why are, in accordance with my honorable colleague Jeffrey, there are quite a number of institutions which got concerned. Now, in the first place, I do think when the FIRA regime come into place, they are well aware that the LAC rule would be coming, right? This assumption should be correct, right?
So the FIRA...
Where the FIRA rule has passed, yes, the LAC rule is coming. Yeah. And some of these institutions would have had some sort of LAC-like or LAC instrument on their balance sheet. So why, the question is, I may ask the chairman or Elmer, why are these smaller institutions so concerned about the LAC rules? That's my question.
Robert, maybe you give your answer first. I can supplement after your answer.
Sure. So while it is the case that instruments that already count as capital towards meeting capital requirements will also count towards meeting LAC requirements, because for resolution entities, for example, LAC requirements will be calibrated at twice the amount of capital requirements.
Okay.
Some institutions, I'm sure, will be concerned that being subject to LAC means they have to issue more of these types of instruments. Yeah. So I think the nature of the instruments is less of a concern. It's more that they might have to issue a greater volume.
Yeah, Kenneth, I think two concerns. First concern is if, within a group, you need to issue LAC instrument to your parent company, but your parent company may not have the same requirement to issue LAC at this moment. Say they may, their parent company may require just to have a LAC requirement 3 or 4 years from now, even a bit later than Hong Kong. So that means, that LAC instrument that bought by their parent company will become a direct deduction from their capital base. Instead of they can issue an external LAC so as to pass through the risk to the market. This is first thing. Okay. The second thing is that for LAC paper or LAC instrument for smaller bank, they have to use a very attractive interest rate so that the market practitioner would consider to buy this kind of paper, because specifically bank or insurance company could not buy this kind of LAC paper, so the potential buyer will be quite limited. Say some hedge fund or some private banking customer that willing to accept higher risk. So that's the second concern from them, that you have limited buyer, potential buyer. to buy your LAC instrument, even though you want to issue something to the market.
Okay. One final question. I will leave the chance to my other colleagues. I understand that these LAC instruments will only be sold to professional investors as defined under the SFC rule. Is that correct? Okay. And it seems to me that once you got these LAC instruments, there is no liquidity in it because there's no market in it because people are just holding on to it and receiving interest and bearing the risk. Is that correct?
Robert?
So I think there's nothing in the rules that would prevent a secondary market from developing in these instruments. It is, of course, the case that to the extent retail investors are not part of that market, it is perhaps smaller than it otherwise would be. But the alternative is to allow retail investors with access to these instruments and then run the risk of investors who are some combination of do not properly understand the risks and perhaps are unable to bear the loss, then being exposed to these instruments. And I think that risk is not something that we would want to run.
Okay.
Okay. Now it's the turn of Honourable KP Chan. KP, please.
主席，我想問一問幾個問題啦。第一就係話，係啊，我首先要我首先申報我係東亞銀行獨立非執行董事啊。多謝提我啊。咁咧就係我想問咧就係話而家係咪即係當佢金管局當佢一個所謂歸類為處置實體咧，先至要開始喺2年內做呢樣嘢？你係咪呢個樣先？係咪一定係呢樣嘢咧？係咪？係啦，即係平時唔使做定嘅係咪？好啦，咁但係咧嗱，我想問嘅問題就係話咧，如果係咁嘅話咧，如果呢間銀行已經進入一個處置程序咧，其實點會仲有人肯真金白銀走去即係俾錢去買嗰啲 debt 咧咁樣？咁啊結果就係話咧，佢啲票據咧就要非常之貴啦，係咪？咁你有冇考慮咁樣做會令佢加速佢死亡咧？即係仲快清盤啊！即係我真係諗唔到點解人哋一個買到咁大規模嘅票據咯，即係佢咁弱勢，一係你就好高，可能你20厘咁樣，一係咧你就根本就冇人買。咁有冇考慮個實際可行性有幾大咧？如果咁樣，問到兩個問題先啦，係嘛？
So your reasoning, of course, is absolutely right, that if you get to the stage where a bank is running into difficulty, trying to raise funding at that stage is likely to be very expensive, if not impossible. So under the rules, the banks will be required, those banks that are affected, will be required to issue these LAC debt instruments in advance. So this means that the instruments will be issued by financial institutions, banks, in a kind of business as usual scenario, so that should sometime in the future that bank run into trouble, the financial resources are already pre-positioned on its balance sheet. So thank you for raising it. This is a very important point, is that the rules require these LAC debt instruments to be issued and for the necessary resources to be pre-positioned on the bank's balance sheets in advance of them getting into difficulties.
如果你咁講嘅，即係話其實平時已經要做定嘅話咧，你就會加大嗱，即係我要搞清楚先。頭先你又講話係嘅，其實就唔係嘅，即係話平時要做定啊嘛，係咪？就唔係等到嗰時先做啊嘛。你要澄清呢一點好重要。
其實我想補充少少咧，就係根據金融機構處置機制條例，金融處置當局咧係要針對每一個金融機構係喺恆常嘅時候已經要做定一啲處置嘅規劃。咁所以每一個機構咧都應該係喺未有問題之前，要有一套嘅策略係擺定喺度。隨時如果真係有問題嘅時候咧攞嚟用嘅，而其中一個呢一種嘅措施咧，就係內部重整嘅呢個程序，呢個措施。
係啦，即係我想指出就係話咧，第一呢個咧就其實一定會加重現有銀行咧，即係一個新嘅 requirement 咧，新嘅要求啦，新嘅資本嘅要求啦，呢個根本就係咪？咁但係其實你已經要求啲銀行做緊就話，哇！如果你係最差嘅情況，你會點咧？譬如你總部又可能要賣啊，其他啲現金係點樣套現？已經有一套嗰個機制，即係類似係 liquidation 之前，即係去到之前你點樣攞到資金啊？咁已經做到呢一套啦。 喺呢套之外，你又再加套上去咧，我淨係擔心香港啲銀行唔知點樣經營咯，將來會係。即係個問題就係話嗱，你第一你已經有話要 virtual bank 啊，虛擬銀行你又預備發10幾20個牌出嚟啦，咁啊已經競爭力會非常之強勁啦，已經到第一啦嚇。第二跟住你有好多處置機制，而家再整多呢一個，仲要係香港係全世界其中一個最先行呢一個機制。你有冇諗過銀行將來仲有冇競爭性咧？你係咪喺度摧毀緊呢個成個行業咧？即係你有冇諗下佢點樣再做生意咧？佢點同其他地區咧？特別係新加坡唔行字，淨係香港行。咁你諗下香港嗱，新加坡又唔行 virtual bank 啦。即係新加坡 has said that they wouldn't issue any virtual bank license, but Hong Kong is going to issue 10 to 20 license. So there will be fierce competition in the banking industry in Hong Kong. And now you add all these capital requirements, which is so huge. As you just mentioned, it's 15 to 18% of the asset. You know how big is the amount? So I'm wondering, have we ever considered, whether the bank can survive at all? So why are we creating such a difficult situation for Hong Kong banks? Have you ever considered whether they can survive after you really do all this to them? And you are requiring so fast. You are actually one of the first regime in the world to be imposing that kind of requirements. So I would really urge, first of all, we must have a hearing from the banks. As one of our colleagues has already, we need to hear from them. Secondly, I'm really worried about those, no matter it's big, medium to small, they all have big problems. If you're trying to impose this without, considering what are the financial impact to them, it could be a killer to the banks in Hong Kong. At least those that invest in bank share would have a big problem because you will see their earning coming down very fast because you have to issue all these debts in advance. So it is crazy because when I posed you my question, I was hoping that you would say that, only when they get into trouble, then you will ask them to issue this. But you are not. You are going to ask them when they have a CAR ratio of 19% in average, which is much, much higher than the basic requirement, and you're still doing this. And then what you are doing this actually increasing their CAR ratio to 30%. So it is totally crazy, isn't it? So please really think about, what we are doing in the insurance industry is that under the laws in Hong Kong, the latest insurance law, the insurance authorities not only required to regulate the insurance, they also need to promote the industry so that the industry can survive. Otherwise, we don't need any regulator at all. You'll probably lose your job if all the banks are bankrupt. So what I'm trying to say that is please really think about whether it's viable, whether it's practical to impose such a high level of capital in addition to this so high level of liquidity in the banks and also capital, everything is so high. So please really consider whether they can survive.
張秘書長，我覺得陳議員嘅問題咧係比較宏觀嘅。我覺得before 金管局嘅同事答之前咧，我都想即係財富局咧作為一個政策局咧，先講下你哋對陳議員頭先嗰啲問題嘅一個睇法，然後譬如金管局再嚟回應，唔知會唔會好啲咧？唔該。
好，多謝主席，多謝陳議員嘅問題。咁我哋當然都係好重視業界嘅聲音啦。咁如果議員認為係需要安排一個聽證會嘅話，咁我哋當然會樂意出席嚟聆聽業界嘅聲音。咁但係正如即係頭先金管局嘅同事亦都有介紹，即係呢個雖然我哋理解對銀行業界係會有一啲影響，
摧毀性。
但係對整體即係金融系統嗰個穩定性嘅嗰個正面嘅作用，我哋亦都不能忽視嘅。咁就正如金管局亦都已經係做咗2次嘅諮詢之中咧，其實整體嗰個意見亦都係唔係對整體嗰個規管嘅需要有太大嘅意見，而可能係有啲技術性嘅細節嗰度係有啲意見，咁所以我哋亦都會即係個別處理呢啲情況。
Okay, Robert, do you have any response to Honourable KP Chan's queries?
Sure. So thank you for the question. So I was going to talk about the impact assessment, but that's already been covered off. Thank you. So I think one thing I would like to bring out, though, is that these are to some extent new requirements, but these have been very much in train and in contemplation since the primary legislation was enacted in 2016 and then came into force last year. So the FARO specifically provides for the making by the monetary authority of these rules. So obviously new today, but they have been in train for quite a while. And just to make a couple of comments on the international context. So Hong Kong is obviously one of the most prominent global international financial centres. And as such, it is important that Hong Kong is able to provide both a robust regulatory environment for financial institutions, but also financial stability. And so if you look around at other international financial centres, both in the UK, in the US, in other jurisdictions that are host to the world's biggest banks, they are all either have already or in the process of bringing into force rules that are comparable to these LAC rules to ensure that when banks fail, they are able to do so safely, protecting financial stability, and without putting at risk depositors' funds and the ability of the banks to continue to provide critical financial functions. So on one level, it's fair to say that Hong Kong is moving forward with these rules, with a limited number of other jurisdictions at the moment, but those jurisdictions are exactly our peers in the sense that they host globally important international financial centres. And the view of the MA is that these rules will in fact complement and increase Hong Kong's standing as an international financial centre. And as we've heard during the consultation process, the responses from industry were largely that they were supportive of a resolution regime, and they were supportive of having a LAC regime. Obviously, there were some comments and differences of opinion about the implementation details, exactly the scope of calibration and scope of banks that should be caught and so on. But the principles, we believe, have widespread support.
主席，你唔好介意，我再跟進啦。即係我只係想講咧，嗱，頭先秘書長係咪啊？秘書長係啊係啊。助理秘書長咧，其實你咁講咧，我真係要大家要小心咧，就係話第一，嗰啲銀行咧對住你哋未必咁講真嘢，呢個第一啦嚇。第二咧就係話咧係更加重要咧，就係話佢未睇到啲詳細啊嘛。你啱啱出啲 guideline 咧，即係好簡單啫嘛。如果你話你要去 provide 1億咁樣，你同佢 provide 10億係兩樣嘢嚟噶嘛。而家睇到 guideline 你嗰個要求相當高，你15到18% 啊嘛。呢個係一個好即係一個好大嘅數字。而且呢啲分咧會 idle 咗喺度咧，其實我都唔知佢點樣搞，即係呢個會代去嗰個成本好似好緊要啦。所以咧嗱，而家將來啲銀行嚟到咧，佢講咁我諗即係佢哋就寫好多俾我哋啦即係我反而咧就係即係亦都唔係淨係邊間銀行，我諗好多人都會有好強嘅意見。如果唔係，我哋都唔會坐晒喺度啦。其實就係話你要小心咧，就係話喺啲細節先至更加要小心咯。即係因為如果你話嗰個比例咁高。同埋我唔明啦，咁你話啲可唔可以答到我？新加坡係會幾時行呢樣嘢？因為我哋要比較，我哋要揀同我啲競爭對手㗎啦，即係會幾時行咧咁樣，同埋佢個銀碼係咪相約咧咁樣？即係我絕對明白你政府梗係要I guess you really need to bring us up to the global standard, so we need to do that. There's no choice at all. But the problem is how fast are we running? Are we going to run ahead of everyone so that we are leading everyone, or we are trying to impose something so heavy that no one can sustainable. So why don't we wait for other big countries, global countries to go ahead first, and then we see what are their problems. Just like Solvency II, you look at Euro, they impose the Solvency II, and there's so much problem that they really can't do it anymore. So they are now changing, and many places in Europe still not imposing Solvency II. And then you see there are other systems like the risk-based capital, which are much better than Solvency II. So I'm worried that that may be another copy, another version of the Solvency II, which has created so much problem. So please, while I fully understand where you are coming from, but please really take my advice. It could be very dangerous or harmful to Hong Kong. We really don't, you and I live in Hong Kong, so we don't want to hurt Hong Kong at all. So why can't we at least be a little bit slower than Singapore? Can we do that? So that is basically my question and hopefully advice to you.
So without wanting to comment on the specific future plans of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, what I would do is make the observation that what we're doing by bringing these rules forward now and then setting out an implementation timeline, which, as described, will run several years into the future, does not by any means put us as a distant kind of outlier, front-running everyone else in the region, never mind around the world. For example, Japan is the host of some of the world's biggest banks and has rules in place doing this already. Singapore and Australia are both taking forward proposals along these lines, reflecting the need for banks that fail to have adequate loss-absorbing capacity on their balance sheets to protect public funds. The biggest banks in China, in the mainland China, will also be subject to TLAC requirements in due course in the coming years. And it's likely that, notwithstanding that under the Financial Stability Board's rules, the Chinese banks were given an additional number of years to comply. It's likely that in practice, when those rules come into force, in order to allow for an appropriate implementation timeline, that there may not be that big a difference in timing there either. So I don't want to give the impression that what we are doing is front-running wildly other jurisdictions in Asia, never mind, as I've already mentioned, in UK, Europe, in the US. What we are trying to do is set out clearly, well in advance, proposals and these rules to ensure that the industry here in Hong Kong has an adequate transition period in order to adjust, in order to meet these requirements, which will enhance financial stability in Hong Kong and protect the provision of critical financial services to the wider economy.
Chairman， 我想再我有兩個建議嘅，我覺得咧就第一咧。就我哋真係可以考慮下咧，譬如有啲香港都資本充足比率，即係 CAR ratio 啲係高嗰啲咧，你知而家我哋遠高於政府嘅要求啦。咁嗰啲係咪一部分可以攞嚟當呢一個咁嘅用途咧？咁樣呢個第一個考慮啦。第二，我想政府真係認真去做一個研究咧，就係話，如果你真係要出呢啲咧，因為頭先你都講得好清楚啦。如果你係大股東咁啊，可能好啲啦。但係如果有啲人冇大股東嗰啲咧，咁佢點咧？佢喺市場有啲咁狹窄嘅 investor 去攞時，一定我想知道大概要啲咩 rate 先至做得到啊！即係因為你講緊唔係細數，可能講好多億嘅喎。即係可唔可以有啲研究初步去估計下咧？係嘛？即係你計出嚟先抵知㗎嘛。如果唔係咧，你而家叫人哋做咧，可能好即係個後果可能即係你自己諗係好容易啫。其實而家佢息口上升緊啦。金融風暴嚟緊啦，仲搞啲咁嘅嘢係咪啊？咁我就唔知會有啲咩後果咯，係嘛？即係佢哋係咪可以研究下係真係話，喂，起碼都揾人啲專家去計一計，或者即係揾啲精算師計嘅大概會啲咩range， 我哋會係要俾咩錢，咁即係先至遞到對銀行影響。
張秘書長同埋阿 Robert， 我想即係頭先陳議員問嘅咧，就係話政府當局會唔會諗將一部分嘅 CAR 可以用作轉化作為 LAC 嘅作用啦，咁呢個第一樣嘢啦。咁我覺得個 paper 係冇specifically address 到呢個 issues 嘅。第二個咧就係話，對於一啲冇一啲銀行或者金融機構咧，佢冇一個特別嘅單一大股東嗰啲咧，咁佢要對外去發呢啲票據啦。咁發票據嗰時咧，有冇研究過呢一類機構實際可能要面對嘅成本係點樣樣？有冇做過一啲研究啊？咁咧就俾翻一啲資料咧，等我哋啲委員可以知道。咁其實咧翻去除咗呢兩個之外咧，我覺得頭先阿 Robert 你介紹嗰個咧，我覺得如果可以嘅話咧，我希望政府當局都俾翻一個表，即係做一個 tabulate 翻一個表咧，就係頭先講新加坡啦、日本啦，又或者鄰近一啲亞洲嘅國家咧，究竟佢實行呢個 LAC 嘅 步伐係點？因為頭先我知道 Robert 都有講，但係in fact 咧就係有啲而家其實仲喺度做緊 consultation 啊，可能行得係比香港為慢嘅。咁實際可唔可以用一個表列嘅形式咧，將佢哋行嘅而家行到邊個步驟或者邊個處境咧，等我哋可以俾啲委員咧去比較翻咧。其實亞洲地區行呢個 LAC requirement 嗰度咧，大家嗰個速度係點樣樣？咁我諗呢度可以做到一個幾好嘅判斷咯，嗬。係啊，係啦。咁下一個我諗輪翻到去 Dennis 先啦 ，Dennis please。
多謝主席。我覺得頭先同事講嗰啲問題，確實係政策上一啲實際嘅問題嚟嘅。I've been reading the situation in China. That my understanding is of the 4 major banks, there is a need to raise roughly $1 trillion worth of TLAC product amongst the 4 banks, just amongst the 4 banks, $1 trillion, much higher than Europe, much higher than the US. So, speaking as an outsider, Chairman, if I may, if there is a demand for China to raise $1 trillion worth of TLAC assets or instruments, how are we going to sell? How are we going to expect our banks in Hong Kong to sell their TLAC instruments to who? Who would buy it? Because when China is already eating up so much of the funds available on TLAC instruments, $1 trillion, I think there is a legitimate concern that maybe the banks in Hong Kong won't be able to sell this to anyone. Who would buy it? Is my question, and I think it's a worthwhile question, one raised by my honourable friends. So, have you considered whether they can actually do it by 2020?
2022.
2022. I think China, PRC is doing it much slower because I think they realize they have a huge problem of meeting that $1 trillion gap, and so they want to wait and see how these TLAC instruments will actually do before fully implementing their TLAC requirements. Do we need to do it at a much slower pace, given that's the situation? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Just to make a couple of observations in relation to that. So, as already described, putting to one side the global systemically important banks, for other banks that might be covered by LAC requirements, the earliest likely date by which requirements will need to be met is the 1st of January 2022. But a couple of points to make in relation to that is that is 24 months after classification. And the date of classification for any particular entity would be determined by the monetary authority. And while the rules provide for a 24-month implementation period, that can be extended by the monetary authority. So while it may well be that actually the investor base for LAC instruments issued by a Hong Kong bank is not in any case necessarily the same as the investor base for Chinese GSIBs. If there are concerns about market capacity at the time at which Hong Kong banks are issuing these types of instruments, there is flexibility in the rules to allow for timing to be suitably arranged to avoid any glut of instruments coming to market, which the market would then struggle to absorb. And I think it's also important to make the point that of the banks potentially in scope in Hong Kong, the clear majority are subsidiaries of overseas banking groups. And so they are more likely to be classified as material subsidiaries rather than resolution entities, which means they themselves, the Hong Kong institutions, would be issuing internal LAC within their groups, and then the parent banks would be funding that through the issuance of external loss-absorbing capacity instruments into global capital markets, in which many of these parent banks are already established names.
Dennis? Okay. Kenneth? No. Thank you.
Talking about the return on this LAC instrument, I don't know whether there would be any research or estimate or any business analysis. How many basis points would you think would these LAC instruments to be paying in order to become attractive? Because probably I think these LAC instruments will not be credit rated. I think what a yardstick we need to compare would be AAA debts. And how many basis points about a normal AAA debt will these LAC be paying? That will be the cost of capital to the banks. I don't know whether there will be any study on that, because I think my honourable colleague, gone already, would be interested. And my second question would be, many of my colleagues have asked about once the LAC has been issued and the banks got the funds into the balance sheet. Now, it seems to me that these funds will be sitting idle because you can't make use of these funds to do lending. Is that correct, or is that a requirement? What are they going to do with this fund when they get into their vault? Is it just sitting there on the balance sheet doing nothing, or can they use the fund to do some sort of very safe lending? And what, in fact, do they require to do when they receive these funds from the LAC instrument?
Thank you for those questions. So on your first question about the cost of these instruments and sort of basis points. So there are a number of global banks that issue instruments, TLAC instruments already, but of course none based in Hong Kong. So when we did our impact assessment, what we assumed was that the cost of LAC instruments issued by Hong Kong institutions would be the same as some of the capital instruments that Hong Kong banks already do issue. So we have quite a good kind of data point there, which provides us with a guide as to how these LAC instruments might be priced in due course. And in fact, we took quite a conservative approach in our impact assessment, because we would expect these LAC debt instruments to rank senior to any capital, and therefore be less risky, and so be a little bit cheaper. And so when doing our assessment, by assuming they would be priced the same as some of these capital instruments, that was actually quite a conservative assumption. So that's one sort of a significant data point we've used in doing the modelling. I'm sorry, can you...
Second question.
Sorry, could you remind me of your second question?
Is there any regulation whereby you are allowed or not allowed to use the fund raised from the LAC instrument? Are they sitting in the balance sheet, idling away, or can you lend out a percentage of that fund you got, or what? What can the bank do with the buffer here?
Yeah. Sure, apologies. So there are no restrictions set out in the rules on how a bank could apply the funds that it raises through issuing LAC debt. So in practice, subject to normal supervision and the bank's normal business, there is nothing to prevent a bank from taking the proceeds from LAC debt issuance and using them to fund its normal productive portfolio of investments and lending activities.
Yeah. Okay. OK， 咁我作為主席就問3個好即係點講啊，宏觀嘅問題啦。我希望副秘書長秘書長你可以答下啦。第一個咧就係 FIRO 咧，其實就 apply to 3種唔同嘅金融機構啦。咁就有證券嘅、保險同埋銀行啦。咁而家咧，我想問下，有3個唔同嘅 regulators 去管啦，有分別係保監會啦、證監會啦同埋金管局。咁其實呢3個監管機構就點樣去即係實施呢個 LAC 咧？有冇做過任何溝通？同埋咧，就我知道咧，好似金管局係行先嘅。咁但係喺呢一個事件上面咧，佢3個協調係會點做嘅咧？咁呢個第一個問題。第二個問題咧就係而家大家都知道中美貿易戰咧可能會繼續打落去啦。咁緩和就緩和咗啲。咁即係話咧明年或者明後年啦，或者跟住落嚟幾年咧，可能香港銀行嘅經營環境都會受到中美貿易戰呢個咁嘅陰霾影響咧，會喺經營上邊有壓力嘅。咁而家咧監管機構又實施一啲國際標準擺落嚟。咁喺實施嘅過程會唔會考慮翻即係未來幾年銀行嘅經營壓力咧？喺嗰個實施嘅時間度咧，可以俾一啲緩衝咧， 譬如俾多啲緩衝啊，譬如我聽講有啲同業都講可唔可以俾多每一樣嘢俾多3個月、6個月或者9個月嘅緩衝期，讓佢哋可以唞唞氣，然後先至去即係實施呢樣嘢咧。咁呢個係第二個問題啦。第三個問題咧，我知道咧同呢個 LAC 相關咧，就係金管局出嗰個 Code of Practice 啦。咁裏邊咧就講到咧就係邊個大細嘅銀行需要去符合呢個 LAC 嘅規定咧，就係1500億總資產嘅。咁呢個 Code of Practice 一定咗之後咧，咁我唔知道金管局會幾耐去重檢呢樣嘢，所以我想問下當局咧，會唔會出咗呢樣嘢之後，都要求金管局咧定期去檢討下呢個 Code of Practice 裏邊一啲門檻，即係數目，因為我哋每年有通脹啦，咁你個門檻其實你如果20年前 set 咗一個門檻，咁其實你每年通脹3% 或者2% 咧，你個門檻都要定期去修改嘅喎。咁喺呢一方面咧，金管局有冇個承諾，或者起碼當局有冇承諾咧？就話呢個門檻定咗之後，而家你覺得合適啦，但係定期你都要去 on and off 都要去 review 下佢，令到呢個門檻係適應當時嘅市場環境咧。咁我呢個3個宏觀嘅問題想問下，唔該。
好多謝主席嗰3個問題，咁我逐一答一答。咁首先第一個咧就係的確喺金融機構處置機制條例下邊咧係有3個類別嘅金融機構都係受到監管嘅。咁分別就係銀行業啦、保險業啦，同埋證券及期貨業嘅實體3種。咁3個界別咧就各自有自己嘅處置當局。咁喺一般情況之下，如果淨係處理自己界別裏邊嘅即係處置機制的話咧，就係佢本身界別裏邊嗰個監管當局就係嗰個處置當局。咁但係如果跨界別嘅時候咧，財政司司長就要喺嗰個譬如話佢有一個金融集團。有各種唔同嘅界別嘅實體的話咧，咁財政司司長就要就住嗰個金融集團指定一個主要嘅處置當局嚇。咁呢樣嘢就係即係我哋已經就住部分嘅集團已經做咗。咁而就住 LAC 咧，我哋而家講緊嘅呢一個規則咧，係只係適用於銀行界嘅。咁就係因為我頭先都提過，就係考慮各項因素之後咧，我哋覺得係應該係首要。做咗銀行界先，因為國際上亦都係即係FSB 亦都係即係出咗銀行界嗰個指引啦。咁而其他2個界別咧，我哋暫時係仲未有具體計劃嘅。嚇，呢個係第一個問題。咁啊，第二個咧就係講緊會唔會因應銀行嗰個經營環境，未來1-2年可能會有一啲即係不確定嘅因素，所以喺實施嗰個時間表嗰度會有彈性。咁首先本身呢一個實施嘅時間表本身就係已經係機制上係有彈性嘅，因為幾時開始實施咧？就係喺處置機制下邊咧，嗰個處置當局係本身應該係就住每一個金融機構作一個規劃，而根據嗰個規劃，如果認為係有內部重整嘅需要的話，即係提早要做呢一個準備的話咧。咁佢就係可以將呢一個金融實體classify 做一個即係需要有 LAC requirement 嘅一個機構啦。咁而由嗰陣時開始咧，就計2年時間可以俾佢做呢個準備。咁當然因為呢一個過程咧係逐間金融機構去做嘅，咁所以當然喺即係金管局嘅角度，佢都係有自己嘅即係所謂嘅優先次序，咁當然係以對本地嗰個銀行體系、金融體系嗰個風險嚟講，邊啲係即係要首先做嗰啲做咗先啦。即係金管局會承諾咧，由大到細嘅都會排即係 prioritize 嗰個咁嘅逐間做嘅，即係做嘅先後次序。係啦，佢先後次序都係本身係根據重要性同埋對整體嗰個體系嗰個影響嚟做嘅。而當佢一旦將呢一個即係金融機構定為係需要符合 LAC requirement 的話咧，係有2年時間可以做到呢一個要求。咁所以其實 即係仲有一啲時間上嘅彈性嘅。此其一啦，此其二就係、即係正係因為銀行界可能遲啲會面對一啲動盪或者風波，咁所以即係可能我哋覺得整體上係咪應該都係提早做定一啲準備功夫，等佢哋真係遇到問題嘅時候，等呢個處置機制發揮作用。呢個亦都係呢個處置機制其中一個最重要嘅即係目標。咁第三咧就係講緊金管局就住 LAC requirement 出嘅實業守則。咁我理解呢一個實業守則咧，其實嗰個諮詢期仲未完嘅。咁所以如果業界係對住呢個實業守則嘅一啲細節仲有意見嘅話咧，就歡迎佢哋向金管局提出。咁呢個諮詢期應該係去到12月3號先至完嘅。
OK。好，
多謝主席。
冇啊。咁今日仲有冇委員提問？如果冇咧，我聽到委員嘅意見咧，就係問咗問題啦，有一啲文件咧係要補充嘅，譬如頭先我講嘅3類文件啦，列出翻亞洲國家一啲實施 LAC 嘅情況係點樣樣。第二咧就係話會唔會研究將 CAR 轉化為 LAC 嗰度咧係有啲研究出嚟嘅結果嘅報告啦，可以俾大家參考。仲有一個咧就係話嗰啲如果有銀行佢冇一個單一大股東嘅時候咧，其實有冇做過一啲研究咧，對佢哋發行啲 LAC 嘅票據咧，佢個成本啊或者係可行性咧，係做過一啲類似嘅即係研究啦。咁究竟係咪可行？因為個法例本身如果係生效咗之後咧，就變成一個法例。咁喺執行嗰陣時咧，可能就唔係監管機構即係會考慮咁多。但係對商業機構或者銀行嚟講咧，佢考慮更多咧就係嗰個執行究竟係有冇可能。咁呢度我諗呢個相關當局咧會補充翻啲文件俾我哋啲委員啦。咁另外大家頭先咧就好似係都希望有一個公聽會嚟到聽聽銀行嘅意見。咁呢個我聽到係一個大家都要求嘅嘢。咁所以石委員係咪你都同意有公聽會呢樣嘢啊？
主席你講乜我都同意。
係 OK， 多謝你啊！咁所以咧，我哋會揾一個時間咧，我哋就開個公聽會，聽聽銀行業界嘅一啲意見啦。咁我諗等公聽會完咗，我哋搜集咗啲意見之後咧，咁今日因為我哋就唔適宜做一個逐條審議㗎啦。咁我諗就等公聽會之後咧，聽晒所有意見，亦都回應晒大家嘅問題咧，我哋先至進入去逐條審議嘅階段，好唔好啊？各位委員，如果冇意見呢，咁今日就嘅會議就到呢度為止。咁多謝大家參加。咁下一次公聽會再見大家啦，唔該晒。